What makes a good player? Seriously, I'm looking for an answer here because I don't know. Fortunately, Moon and Beaver are on this episode, and they are good players. Moon takes his first stab at hosting and does a bang-up job, and Beaver busts out his quadrant formula, the 4 main aspects of being a good league player. Moon actually adds a 5th point, so it's the quintic formula now, I think. Turns out there's a lot that goes into this game. Go figure. Let's talk about it on a podcast.
Welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pony drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message, hit the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pon Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try enforcing some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the episode 534 of the Trinity Force Podcast. Today, Adam's not hosting. I'm giving it a try today, and I'm joined by Punch and Beaver tonight.
Hey guys.
Mutiny, boys. Mutiny.
What an upgrade for the hosting position, I gotta say. I'm so excited.
This is going to be a train wreck because I go no practice round or anything.
So do we rename the podcast now to something being like Garen focused? Like Garen's Trinity Force Podcast?
Well, he goes Trinity Force in the gauge into Sork shoes if you like really nice.
Yes, the Sork shoes.
So we call it the Tri-Gauge Sork Shoes Podcast.
Sorcerer's Tri-Gauge Podcast?
Sorcerer's. Yeah, that sounds a little better.
Alright, let's roll with that.
It works for me. So episode 1 then, I guess.
That's right.
Episode 1 of the Sork's Tri-Gauge Podcast. Welcome to the brand new podcast. We're trying to give Trinity Force a run for its money.
Yeah, we even stole all of their distributing properties as well, so it's going to be perfect. We're just going to wipe right over them.
Yep, the same editor is on our payroll too.
Steal all of their regular listeners. It's going to be perfect. Steal all the hosts.
We're going to steal their URL too. You can find us at trinityforcepodcast.com.
It's the perfect rhyme.
So, as you guys know, Booter Boxers, go to booterboxers.com/tforce and use the code TrinityForce to get 20% off your order. They're premium, high quality bamboo material boxers. Adam raves about them all the time. I don't personally own them, but 20% is a good discount. Who's to say that's not? So
check them out. It's the least you could do if you got, you can't just ignore your boxer drawer forever, If you haven't updated that thing in a while, you probably got some stains in there. Probably got some holes in there. You don't want old raggedy boxers. Get some new ones.
It supports the podcast and your private bits, so it basically takes care of the most important things in your life. Can't really do a better shout out than that.
Dude, I can't complain. I don't actually own Buddha boxers. I really need to buy some because I've been on the podcast for over 6 months, but I love a good pair of comfortable boxers, so I can't complain. So hook yourself up, guys.
Who doesn't?
And seriously, I always say this, I do have some more expensive boxers. If you have not purchased any for yourself, treat yourself and get some, because it's worth it. That's all I have to say.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you anyway, because you're going to touch on the meta report next.
Oh yeah, guys. So, $5 a month. Vrail and I host the meta report. It's once a month, not once a week. You'll get that inside joke if you listen to it. But it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's not actually straightforward. It's very complex. We typically spend well over an hour talking about the state of the meta on the current patch. Really gets you guys updated on what's going on in League, who's strong, who's weak. Who we think needs buffs and nerfs, and what you're going to be facing in solo queue. Flavor of the month stuff. And then we always hit you guys with the meta breaker at the end of the report, which is like a cheeky little a cheeky little segment for you hipsters out there who want to pick up a champion who's not maybe played so much but is still powerful. And since I now live in a new city, it's called Victoria. It's on the south of Vancouver Island. I'm all settled in, so I should be jumping back on the pod more regularly. This is a pretty hipster town, so I can say that I'm gonna make the full transition. I bought myself a full brim sun cap today, so I'm ready for the weather. Yeah, it's kind of like Portland, the Portland of Canada.
Have any decorative scarves?
There's so many microbreweries here. I can't even count that many, and it's pretty nice. Land of dreadlocks. Wait, any nice scarves?
Yeah, decorative scarves. I think that's big with the hipsters.
I've got some. Yeah, straight. Right, cool, straight from China. They're so nice and soft. You've probably never experienced anything like it. I have no idea.
I don't know what I'm missing out on.
Yeah, you
Beaver's
don't.
the kind of guy that dresses well. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I missed one word in that sentence. He cut out.
I said Beaver's the kind of guy that dresses well.
Yeah, I like to dress well. Well, in less than a year, I'm going to be a teacher, so I better dress well.
Hell yeah.
But anyways, I was halfway through the meta report here. So the other part, usually the beginning for the first half hour, we always bring on fresh guests, and we talk about like a specific topic. So we've gone over. God, I can't remember. The first one was with Rail. It was like before he was on the TFN proper, and we talked about mid lane with him. We've done. God, I can't even remember anymore. We've done so many. Oh, we did a psychology episode, which was with a friend of mine who's a psychologist, talking about anxiety and how to deal with it. That was a really fun episode. And then we've brought on Air Japes from a sort of a different high level gaming community. He's a pro FIFA player, or was, and
there's a top lane one coming up as well.
Yeah, and that was nice. So we just kind of do that, and then this month, I guess, we're doing top lane. So we're going to have 2 guests on this time, maybe 3 if Moon joins us, and we're going to go in depth about top lane, because I've yet to have a single top laner on the episode. It's all mid laners, man. I don't know why. But yeah, this is going to be
top
sweet.
Top lane's a rare breed now.
It's going to be sweet. We'll have 2 1-tricks, a Darius 1-trick, a Garen 1-trick potentially, and then my other friend who likes to play tons of Jacks and Trinity, so a lot of bruisers, Conqueror type stuff. You can learn how to play with and against them. And
you didn't tell me there was going to be a Darius player, dude. I don't know if I can do it now.
It's cool though, but how good is this? Like, all these champs are like in the meta, so you're going to get to talk to like high level experts. These guys are all like, mid to high diamond, on their way to master. So it's going to be really sweet, and I hope you guys can join us for that. And also for so that's just $5 a month, and it really supports us. And then for 10, you get the champ selects too, which are really, really awesome. You get super in-depth conversations with usually like 1-tricks or master challenger level players. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the meta report.
Other than that, we're still looking for replays. So if you have some games you want us to take a look at, send it to replays@trinityforcepodcast.com. And if you have any questions, we take listener questions, feedback at trinityforcepodcast.com. So tonight I was going
to say, just try and get the replays in, not right before a patch, maybe like right after a patch. If you play a game after a patch and then you want to send in a replay, because replays tend to stop working after a new patch is released. Just a heads up.
That's a good point.
So don't do it the day before.
And speaking of, today is... we had a patch this morning, didn't we? Wasn't it like a maintenance patch?
Did we? I totally missed that.
The ranks queues went offline last night. Because at like 3 something I couldn't play anymore. And I think it said something about some kind of a maintenance patch. It might have been bug fixes only, not balance changes.
Could be. I know there were some bugs after the last patch. I don't really remember what they were, but I think they were a big deal.
Unfortunately, I don't remember exactly what it was. I just remember that you couldn't queue for ranked because the servers went down.
All I know is feels like I'm coming out of the Stone Age. I haven't played League in 2 patches, so suddenly Graves is good now.
I missed my Monday games this week, so I don't have much to go on either. I'm in the dark.
It's okay.
Well, I guess we'll transition to the main discussion topic.
Smooth transitions.
Yeah, I know. I told you it's going to be bad.
It's all good, dude. You're doing a great job.
I was hoping tonight we could talk about the general topic of what makes a good player. And that's pretty broad, but I think there are some good big picture concepts that apply to most people at the highest level. So I was hoping maybe we could sort of break into those from our perspective, what we think, broad strokes, what are the things that you have to have or have to practice or learn to really be a good player.
I mean, I have no personal experience with being a good player, but I have seen many good players, so I might be able to contribute to this.
Well, feel free to lead us off if you would like, Punch.
Yeah, Punch. Throw down.
Oh, well, the first thing that came to mind for me when I read this was if you're ever looking to get better at something, whether it's League of Legends, which is what we're talking about here, or chess, or maybe Tai Chi. And I mentioned those because a while ago I read a book called...
that book is so good.
Crap.
I have it.
I just
have
lost
right
it.
here
Can you tell me what the title is?
I almost I think I have it on the shelf just around the corner. It's called The Art of
Learning.
The Art of Learning. That's the one.
That's it. The Art of Learning. Man, I'm doing a great job selling this book since I already forgot the title of it.
It's
but
actually
anyways,
pretty amazing.
It's very amazing. The author was a chess grandmaster, and he grew up learning chess. And so once he became a grandmaster at chess, during his adult life, he actually changed. He took up Tai Chi to try and de-stress himself, and he got more and more into Tai Chi and to the martial arts aspect of Tai Chi, and eventually started performing in tournaments for that and became a grandmaster, a world master Tai Chi martial artist as well. And so he wrote this book about how he was able to do that in two completely different areas, right? And what it comes back to for him was the art of learning. And so that's what I thought of for a good player in League of Legends or anyone that's looking to climb is, are you willing to learn, and are you looking to learn? When you have a bad game, do you get salty and then you start typing in chat about how angry you are and how your team let you down? Or do you try to take away things from that bad game? Do you try to look at, well, where did it go wrong? What did I do wrong? Right? How did it snowball away from me? Do you use external resources out of the game? Do you just log in the league when you get home and play? Or do you actually try to look at what other people are doing in your role? Like, are you watching pro streams? Are you, when you watch the LCS, are you paying close attention to the person that's in your role or playing a champion that you like to play? You can find YouTube guides. You're looking at those. Do you read the patch notes? Right? I mean, a lot of people just don't read the patch notes, and they log into the game and they're surprised to see, oh, this has changed. What gives? Just reading the patch notes will go a long way.
Yeah. Do you listen to a podcast about League of Legends?
Hey, that's not a bad idea.
You make some really great points. I'm sorry. Do you want to keep going, or you mind if I steal the floor?
You can go ahead and steal.
So I have my beautiful yellow legal pad in front of me. And on my very first episode, I think I talked about this. I've since given it a name, and I'm going to steal it from some Magic podcasters that I like to listen to. So I basically call it quadrant theory. So I break down what makes a good player or how to improve into sort of 4 main categories. And Punchy made some really, really great points there, and I think pretty much every single point you make will fall into one of these main 4 categories. So I'll hit you with them now. So starting with one of the most simple ones, it's just game mechanics. So I think I break this into just simply how well do you play your champion. Have you recently purchased the champion for 6,300 IP and took them into ranked? Were they just released after a fresh rework, and you're Josh and play 2 normals that do well and then go and feed in ranked? Or are you Todd level? Have you mastered the champion over years or months or whatever it has?
And I would like to reemphasize on that point that mechanics are champion specific, even down to the last hitting, the timing of the last hitting, because each champion's animation is different. When you're gonna right click that minion changes. And then, not to mention, just the regular abilities, the skill shots you get used to, the range you have to get used to. If you don't play with range indicators on, and you just go off of feel, you got to put a lot of work and time into that champion before you actually know the range of your abilities.
Yeah, mechanics can get pretty deep. It can go as simply as last hitting to how much damage can you output at a specific level, to how much mana does a full combo take, and all of this is, like you said, super champion specific. And then every single champion has some sort of unique special things you can do. Animation cancels. Even a champion as simple as Master Yi, has an auto attack reset with his W if you can do it properly. And every single champion, the more complex they are, the harder it is to master them. But all of them do have these mechanics that are important to understand before taking them to a ranked game.
I also like the point about learning. I mean, even when you're a high level player, you never stop learning. Every season, but whether it's a champion rework or an item change or reworks to the base mechanics of the game, or even like this season when they went as drastic as like totally overhauling the rune and mastery system completely, after 7 seasons of being what it was. You're always learning. The game is always changing. So you have to be able to adapt. Being able to adapt is one of the most important skills. It's one of the reasons certain pro players don't stay relevant.
And that can be true in any sport, and including life. Adapting is really key. That's why evolution's a thing. Sorry guys, it's a real thing.
What?
That entire theory is based on adaptation, right? So you need to be able to adapt to your surroundings. And sorry, I kind of pulled this off topic, but that's a really great point you make, Todd. I like that. So did you guys have anything else to add to mechanics, or did you want to step into point number 2?
I mean, mechanics are everything. I mean, unless you're playing a macro role, which is basically support, and I would say maybe jungle. Yeah. Unless you're playing a macro role, like, your mechanics are really important for the first 10 minutes of the game. I mean, it used to be longer. A laning phase used to be like 15, almost 20.
Yes.
It's shorter now, but for the first 10 minutes of the game, if you're top mid or bot lane, or top mid or ADC, you are 100% relying on your mechanics to gain a lead somewhere.
Yes, I agree with that partially because there are 3 more points and we'll sort of bridge them in. I will add to mechanics that I've always said this, like, the simpler a champion is, the easier they are to master the mechanics of them. So I'm sorry to put Garen on the spot. I know he's not the most complex champion, but reasonably straightforward. It doesn't take you tons and tons of games. You could become fairly comfortable with his damage output, his ability rotations, how he works, in a reasonably short amount of time. That's why people say a Mumu, Warwick, these kind of champs are easy. And when you lower the amount of mechanics that you have to master, compare a Lee Sin or a Elise to a Mumu, Mumu has a lot less to cover, so you can spend less time on mechanics and more time on the other 3 portions of the quadrant theory. Sorry if I hit Garen off there, but I don't know.
No, I mean, it's a good point. The thing that's weird about Garen is what I've noticed is I'm not focused as much on the micro aspect of the gameplay by not having these insanely ridiculous mechanical requirements from the champion. Mm-hmm. But my macro mechanics are a lot better. Mm-hmm. I take a lot less free poke than most people do in lane. I'm like a god at dodging skill shots. Like, that's not humble at all to say that, but like, I dodge like a ridiculous amount, and from like really close ranges too, like ranges where you would think it would just hit. And it's only because like there's like not really much else for me to do. So like I've mastered movement and like the movement mechanics of the game in the time that I'm not overly focused on managing my abilities to ridiculous degrees. So like, playing a mechanically simple champion doesn't necessarily mean you won't continue to improve at the game. It just means that you're going to have to improve in other areas to compensate for there not being mechanical skill on that champion to take you significantly further.
Absolutely. And that's why you see people with... Sorry, you go for it.
Okay. Sorry if I cut you off. I was going to say, Garen to me seems like more of a champion that really excels on decision making. Partially because it's hard to miss his abilities, right? His ult is targeted, his Q is targeted. You just have to stand on people with your E. But those abilities have long cooldowns. So if you use an ability at the wrong time, all of a sudden you shot yourself in the foot. So, I mean, Garen and people with similar problems that have like long cooldowns, but they don't have mana, so they can just use them as at will. They really rely on this decision-making aspect of, when do I use my abilities, as opposed to just, using them whenever they're up.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about mechanics, if you have 10 out of 10 mechanics on someone like a Riven that has a super high ceiling, then that can take you really far. So that's why you see a lot of one tricks in High Challenger, because they're able to master these mechanics to, to the extent of their abilities and abuse these champions. And I think that's a really important thing. I kind of want to jump out of mechanics now. Do you guys want to hear all 4 of them just so we don't like overlap too much?
Do it.
Okay, so mechanics is the first one. The second one is game knowledge, so it's like absolutely enormous. The third would be like awareness, looking at the map, and then the fourth is attitude. So we've kind of alluded to game knowledge, but I think mechanics is sort of like how you click the mouse, how you press the buttons.
The micro, yeah. Like Todd was saying, stuff. Micro versus macro would be game knowledge.
Absolutely. So game knowledge is like, I think it's the largest section. Oh, it certainly is the largest section. And it's macro, so it's everything you know about League of Legends. So it could be as simple as, I need to hit the minions to get the gold. That's a part of game knowledge. To something like, I can make these crazy rotations, or I can pick people off in the jungle if I have this kind of information. It can be prediction, it can be mind games. A super important one is, at least for laning, is understanding the enemy champion's cooldowns and mastering matchups. This is all part of game knowledge. And like we were talking about learning before,
matchups are a micro macro combination.
Yeah, of course.
Which is like a really interesting. This is why I was so big on lane phase being such an important part of the game so many seasons ago. It's one of the few aspects of the game that puts your macro and your micro together for a sustained period. Because otherwise, normally you get into like maybe skirmishes or small team fights, but those only last for maybe 30 seconds or something. Sometimes even less than that, if depending on how snowbally it is. Maybe a little bit more if there's like a lot of chasing going on, but 30 seconds, that's a team fight.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like anybody can keep it up for that long. But when you have it more drawn out, like there's more chances for you to make mistakes, and it really starts to show weaknesses in a player. When you have a longer lane phase. That's why I was always so disappointed, that the lane pressure fell away, basically.
It definitely gives an advantage to the player that has more game knowledge about those like specific matchups, like in those long, like something as simple as cooldown. So I know that when who's a top laner? I don't know, let's just say like Syndra. I think she has like an 18-second cooldown on her W or her E. Her combo has a high cooldown. So you know that if you're on a shorter cooldown champion, you can step into the wave and trade freely with a Syndra while her combo is down. It's stuff like that, and that's punishable the longer the laning phase goes on. So the person with the higher game knowledge theoretically should win. And game knowledge I just think is so important, especially as a jungle and a support player, because those roles... they can have mechanics for sure, but a lot about jungling is where you make decisions, how you path around the map. Same with support goes. Like there are some mechanically intensive champions, but not tons of them. A lot of it comes down to when you're taking trades, who you're protecting in team fights, how you're dropping your wards. This is all game knowledge, and you see all these people that make it to super high elo on champs like, I was gonna say Janna, but we always kind of harp on her being a little OP. I mean, Janna doesn't have like super crazy mechanics. Amumu, there's a challenger one trick Amumu. You think he gets there because he like flash Qs people at the right time and blows them up one shot? No, he gets there because he makes really good decisions and is able to abuse his game knowledge over the opponents who don't have the same level as him, and then therefore he's always 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of them. And a lot of game knowledge, you can get it anywhere. You can be playing the game and get crushed. You've learned something. That's why a win or learn is always a pretty good approach to take to a game.
The mid laner on my 5's team has very good game knowledge, and it's just has awful micro. I'm sorry if you're listening, Thallium. But
Thallium.
I mean, his micro is not very good.
Gave his name away.
But But his game knowledge is so good that he's able to call shots for us, and he's able to get to goal at every season just because he knows his matchups. He knows what objectives to go for. He knows when to rotate. He knows how to coordinate a group of 5 people to actually win a game. So there you go. There's an example right there of like being able to win this game, not through micro, but just being knowledgeable. I also have an example, like a simple example for the micro macro thing that you were talking about, Todd, in laning phase. Like a very simple example of that is Camille versus Fiora, right? Game knowledge would let you know that as Fiora, you want to use your post when Camille's flying at you with hookshot, because that means you're not going to get stunned. You're going to reverse the stun her, and she's not going to get the attack speed, and all of a sudden you win the trade. The micro part is actually hitting riposte in time, because riposte. They cover this in 4 words. It's riposte, not riposte. Riposte.
I mean, tomato.
Okay.
You know,
hitting riposte in time, because if you see Camille flying at you but you can't hit W fast enough, well then your game knowledge didn't help you out very well. Or if you hit W too early and then Camille just lands next to you and purposely misses the skill shot, well then you kind of got outplayed there as well. So the game knowledge is the first half, and then you actually have to execute for the micro part of it.
Yeah, that's really well said. That's a great example. And you see those all throughout laning phases in every matchup, right?
Oh, definitely.
And it's understanding when you can take it, when you can put your micro to use, right? But if you don't know, if you have great mechanics, but you don't know when to like properly go in, that's why I see so many people playing Riven in like, or at least in gold or, you know, silver or low plat or whatever, and these guys have crazy mechanics. Like, they've mastered their champions. I couldn't even come close to them, but they just make horrific decisions. Like, they'll go in 1v5 or, you know, needlessly die and or not make proper rotations, not, you know, pressure the right things on the map. And this is where they'll start to lose. So it's important to have the, you know, to balance out game knowledge and mechanics. Like, don't go all in on one of them. And if you do go all in on one, I would say game knowledge is way more important.
I know what that feeling is like. When I, like many seasons ago, when I first started to get better at this game, when I hit my proverbial wall, back when it was MMR, it was like 1840-ish, 1850 for Platinum. I just couldn't get anywhere past that. And I would get these huge leads in lane phase, and I would feel like I was like really mechanically skilled at lane and at my champion. But as the game started to shift away more towards objectives, I ended up struggling there for a little while, where I didn't really know how to take my leads and turn them into objectives. And like putting all of this pressure on and like trading for kills at like 20 minutes like just wasn't doing any good anymore. And now if the team had funneled resources into me, or if I had like roamed a little bit and like, you know, taken more kills or whatever, and I'm just staying, you know, and I'm just like still fighting at this point and not doing objectives, I was basically costing the game because I had all this power and resources and I wasn't putting it to the right use. So you can definitely be really good and get really fed, but like just constantly outplaying people for kills like isn't all there is to winning games anymore. So if you find yourself in this trap where, you know, you're just so focused on KDA or like just trying to kill targets, like that's not the only way to set up for a victory. Sometimes just existing, just the pressure of if they were to try and fight you, they might die, is enough to get objectives, or is enough to like slowly chip away to win. It doesn't always have to be like a car crash, basically.
Yeah, that's really well said. That sort of is a perfect example of what we've been talking about. And as far as getting better, like learning game knowledge, if you're sitting there like Todd was, like you've hit your wall, you're not sure how to get better at the game, like becoming a student of the game is really key. Like you know, wanting to learn is important, and learning can come in many different ways. You could be watching a YouTube video on, like, I don't know, it could be like a highlights video to like learn some cool mechanics. It could be like a, you know, a skill video, matchup video, be anything like that. It could be on Reddit reading someone's post about how they think, you know, this champion is, you know, has a cool combo, or it could be anything. It could be basically whenever you're consuming League of Legends content, you could be listening to a podcast. You know, consuming League of Legends content, if you want it to be, can be researched towards learning how to get better at game knowledge, and just absorbing it all will slowly make a difference. As long as you use the next point, which is a positive attitude to sort of help that in the right direction.
That is really the only reason I'll turn the LCS on, is to see if I can gain any information from either anything the casters are saying, or I'll take a look at the champions immediately and say, who's playing Camille? And then pay attention to what they've bought, which is always the same items, so that's kind of boring. But if there's nothing to learn in the game that I'm watching, I generally just turn it off, go do something else, because I don't really care about the competitive scene so much. But actually learning from the pros, if you can in that particular match, then it's worth pursuing that. Mm-hmm. If it was a one-sided stomp, then might not learn very much.
Every once in a while, Garen shows up in competitive play, but it's usually as a joke, and then I just get sad.
It's when the games don't matter. Yeah, unfortunately. But
everybody always hypes it up. They're like, "Oh my god, did you see him?" Like, dude, it was a joke game. Like,
yep.
Do you guys want to add more to game knowledge, or do you
I think
we covered it?
I mean,
sorry, I've basically taken over this episode with quadrant theory here.
It's okay. I mean. What did you have left on your list?
So there are two more. The next one I would say is awareness. So it basically comes down to what information you can soak up from looking at the screen. So this could be, how you use health pools, noticing people's mana, probably most importantly, checking the map, using vision to your advantage. This sort of like map awareness type stuff is, I think, pretty important and something that you can easily work on.
When I hear awareness, and I don't know if this is your intention or not, but when I hear awareness, to me that also includes communicating with your team, being receptive to knowledge from your team and providing knowledge to your team. I was watching Risty the other day. Todd knows him. He's another Garen, high-level Garen main. And somebody brought up in chat that he's been fluctuating all throughout Diamond through this season. And somebody brought up in chat that, hey, I noticed that when you dropped to Diamond 5, you were on a streak of not really communicating with your team very much. And he said, that's fair criticism. That's very possible that I might have done that. Not picking missings as much, just not communicating, objective focus, because he's usually pretty responsive to his team, trying to give his team advice as far as what objective to take and all that and whatnot. But if you don't do that, if you're just you're having a bad day, or if you're on a string of losses and you just go into autopilot mode, you might not realize that you're hurting yourself more than you realize. If you normally communicate with your team a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I
didn't end that point well, but you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. When I obviously you guys know me, I like to talk a lot. But no, dude, come on. I think that's why I'll be a good teacher, because I like to talk. I like to explain things. It's just it's very satisfying for some reason. Whether or not I'm right, it's really enjoyable.
But
if you're saying anything with enough conviction,
exactly. Yeah. So as far as like in game goes, I find when I win most games is when I know how to end games, especially like getting barons and closing out, making sure the team's together, pushing down objectives together. And I say, when I'm fed as a jungler, maybe we just got Baron. I'm saying, okay, guys, send that to. It could be simple stuff. Maybe everyone knows this, but I'm just gonna make sure that everyone's on the same page. All right, guys, let's send our top laner bot lane. He can duel the enemy top laner. We'll all pressure top. He'll teleport in if we need it. Just get everyone together. Make sure the game is flowing. Rather than not saying anything, hoping your teammates can read your mind or have the same level of knowledge as you, and just backing. Everyone goes out. Mid laner go gets blue buff, whatever. You guys get caught out 5v3 in their enemy jungle topside, just because one person wasn't on the same page. So I find I win a lot of games, closing out a lot of games. Whether or not the right calls, we do things united, which makes sure that we're in a much better position to win the game. I think that's really important.
I think that's a good tip in general. Actually, my experience with that has been you can't always try to be the one dictating to your team what's happening, because like to a certain degree you do have to like earn the trust of your teammates first. But if you're carrying, or you've already been making good calls, for example, like they're going to be more receptive to any more call outs or suggestions you might bring up after that. Especially like I said, especially if you're carrying, you know what I mean? You can make the game winning call, and most of the time they'll listen to you.
Has anyone ever been in a game with like a 8-0 top laner and he says something, you're like, hey, I'm gonna listen to this guy because he's 8-0 and I'm not?
Well, not top laners. Nobody listens to the top laner, but the other roles.
You're right though. The respect thing is huge. If someone's super fed, then they're obviously a good player. At least we assume so. Sorry, you continue. I don't mean to hijack you.
No, I mean that's basically just the point. You don't always expect that just typing in like a game plan is gonna necessarily turn the tide. But if you have earned the respect of your teammates throughout the game by performing well, and it might be up to you basically to lead the game at that point. Is basically what I'm saying.
Dude, rallying the troops, not even when you're ahead. If you're behind and you've been having a good game and your teammates are doing poorly. The enemy team just comes down. You don't kill any of you, but they take your mid inhibitor or bot inhibitor or something. All right, guys. Let's take a play. Let's go get Baron right now. They won't expect us to do it. Something like that. You guys just all go, and as long as you do things united, since it's a team game, you're always going to be a lot stronger than if everyone is not coordinated. This is why everyone's played, or most people have played, ranked 5s. It's a completely different game, isn't it, when communication is involved?
Yeah, because everyone's together all the time. And solo queue, if your team is always united, like you're saying, even if it's a bad call, you might be in the case of a 5v3. You might be taking Baron as 5, and then only 3 from people from the enemy team come to check, and then you can turn around and kill them. But in Flex, it's everyone's got each other's back. If you catch somebody alone in the jungle, they probably got 4 people, pretty close nearby.
It's hilarious because a lot of people are like, oh, get bad teammates and stuff. It's like, I think of it sometimes. The only people I think are truly bad teammates are the ones, if you go 0-10, maybe they're just having a bad game. I'll give them a break.
AFKers, ragers, and feeders.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
are the bad teammates.
Or people who don't want to listen. I often play support secondary or jungle, and the game goes late. The AD carry is really important to your team, and I'll put an AD carry into one of 3 categories. Very good, like they know what they're doing. Like obviously feeding and a bad player, someone who has a bad attitude typically, or I would put them as serviceable, and most people fall into the category of serviceable. Like if I give them items, get them to the point where they can sort of position fine and I can protect them a little bit, then they're going to get the job done because they kind of know what they're doing. So those kind of people, a lot of people will call them bad because they started the game 0-3, but maybe when they hit their power spikes, they're able to actually provide something to the team. It's the attitude, like Todd said, is really hard to deal with.
And you got to be careful when you make certain callouts too. Like here's a good example. Sometimes when I'm top lane, because I often don't play with teleport, sometimes the enemy top laner will teleport bot lane, and then my bot lane will get into an engagement, and then at the end of it, maybe after somebody dies, like my ADC for example, they will ping me and ping the turret that I've already been pushing for 30 seconds, as if that's not already what I was doing.
I know that ping well.
Dude, if you want to piss off your teammate and get them to intentionally ignore you and not try to win the game anymore out of spite, that's the kind of stuff you should do. As soon as you die, just start making demands on the map with your pings and in the chat, because obviously I'm joking, but seriously, those are the kind of things you don't want to do. Those are bad types of leadership in solo queue.
I think there is a place for, maybe not that ping. Obviously the top lane was pretty clear, but if bot lane's roaming down and they've missed, let's say enemy Ahri rotates down, tries to kill you guys, but you manage to escape, instead of getting your mid laner to come down, if they're not going to make it, or you're too low to actually pull out the 3v3, ping the mid lane tower, say, hey, no, just pressure that lane, make sure she's punished for the mistake that she made, because not all mid laners would understand that kind of thing. I don't know if that's the right point, but I understand. What
So
you
long
mean.
as you're coming
when
from
when
it-
you're from a point of positivity, you know,
yes.
when you're dead and you're like ping ping ping, like at least let's get something out of this. But yeah, I can understand the frustrations, which is maybe we can segue into the last point of quadrant theory, which is attitude. You know, I say attitude is easy for some and difficult for others, quite simply.
Yeah. I mean, so many people, and this is a common thing. So, like, if you're a rager and if you get tilted, like, don't feel bad, because I don't think it's I think it's safe to say that most people get upset and want to lash out after a very frustrating game. You know, this is tilt isn't uncommon, right? I think most people tilt, and it's actually you actually need to put forth a conscious effort to train yourself to not tilt, right? You don't naturally become, or you're just not naturally untiltable. Right? It's something you got to work at, and when you give in to the tilt and you start typing out to your teammates or typing out to the enemy at the end of the game, I mean, you're never gonna get over that.
Yeah, attitude, you know, I think it basically boils down to maturity levels. You know, it's not really part of the game itself, but the people who play this game are all different cultures and ages, and you know, we don't all agree on what's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone's a unique flower for sure.
I think it's unfortunate that, you know, the game is, it's your own, people are almost afraid to talk now because anything will get you reported. And
Anything can be seen as sarcasm. Like, if you say good job, right? Someone in your team might see that as sarcasm and be like, well, screw that guy. I did do a good job.
yeah.
And that guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Or like somebody on your team dies and they type good job intentionally sarcastically. How do you determine whether or not that was actually them being passive aggressive? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, some people like to use the sort of build people up. You know, oh, LeBlanc just got a solo kill mid. Oh, you know, good job, LeBlanc, or a nice kill or something like that. And more than just for your teammates, I think that's a way to keep yourself in check, to keep your own positive mental attitude going. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it can be hard. I consider myself a fairly patient person, probably too patient at times. And I can get frustrated with the game too, and a lot of it comes down to a lot of fixing that comes down to like my sort of like personal balance that I like to try and keep. Balance is pretty important to me. Everyone always talks about like work-life balance, but balancing league with life is also super important. So making sure you get enough sleep if you're playing too late, making sure you're spending time with other people outside of just text chatting to them. You know, going outside and getting fresh air, whatever it is that does it for you. You just have to be able to find a way to de-stress after a tough game.
If you gank my lane and get me first blood, I'm definitely going to give you a good job in chat. But if you feed like double buffs, don't speak to me.
You're dead. You're dead to me.
Don't speak to me.
Whenever I feed,
You're not gonna get that thumbs up emote.
whenever I feed double buffs, I slash mute all until I'm doing well.
Dude, I do the same thing if I like blow summoner's top and then die, especially because I take ignite, dude. People get they will not shut up. They'll be like, how did you die with ignite? But like, I don't know, dude. I went for a risky play and it didn't work out. What the fuck do you think?
Yeah.
Gets on my nerves. It's a bit of a pet peeve. Oh, dude, and when they ping my Sork shoes, like,
Oh, yeah.
dude,
I'm sure.
To be honest though, like Sork shoes Garen, like no one expects that. If I didn't play Garen, I would tell you that's troll. I'm not gonna lie.
When like a bad play happens and somebody dies, like you were saying earlier about bottom lane, right? They get ganked and they die. A lot of people, they have nothing to do because they have the gray screen, so they hit tab and they look at something to blame. And
they look at your items.
Garen's, yeah, that's gonna stand out immediately to them. Like, oh, that's why we're losing this game, because of that guy right there building an item that Garen doesn't usually buy.
And it's like I'm not even on that side of the map. I'm like taking the inhib turret like on the other side. And they're like, Sork shoes Garen, what the fuck? I'm like, dude, I'm taking the inhib turret. It has nothing to do with anything. Like,
Yeah.
So,
so
if you're one of those
tilting.
people that presses tab and looks for someone to blame, stop doing that. Start thinking about what your next play should be, right? Start thinking about the next objective to go for.
Think
And
about
what item to buy.
think about where you're gonna put that ward that you never buy, that you're gonna start buying and then put
Yes.
down somewhere.
Yeah, and as you mature, taking it in a serious note, you'll understand, the importance of accountability, self accountability, and the blame game is easy to play. Like I did it when I was a teenager. I still occasionally do it, and I always try and check myself because this is typically something I can do, to fix the situation, for sure.
So one of my favorite ways to deal with ragers is something I stumbled into once when I was drunk one day playing Overwatch. And that's because Overwatch's voice chat league does not currently for solo queue. And I decided to take on this persona of being overly nice and apologetic, not sarcastically so. I try to sound as sincere as possible because again, this is voice chat, not text, so I have to put inflection to my voice, right? So in one game, I was the object of my team's ire. Somebody looked up my win rate with the champion, and they said, "Oh, why do you keep playing this hero? You've got a poor win rate." So I just said in the saddest voice that I had, I said, "Oh man, I do. Man, I had no idea. This game is all my fault, guys. I'm so sorry." And then people actually started coming to my defense on my team. They said, "No, man, no, it's not your fault. Screw that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about." And at the end of the game, like my team was actually brotherly and hyping up each other. Like I was the rah guy. I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it, guys. Yeah, got a 5-man woo!" And it worked out really well. Obviously, League doesn't have voice chat, so you can't do that. But I mean, if you do want to be, I mean, you can certainly be overly nice and apologize to people if a play goes wrong. Like heaven forbid that you take accountability if you do something stupid, right, and a play goes wrong, and somebody says, "OMG, why'd you do that?" You could just say, "I'm sorry, man, my bad." That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do is just say, "You know what? That was a mistake. I'm sorry. It won't happen again, man."
Yeah, when
Great
people
points.
own up to their own mistakes, it gives me a lot of respect for them.
I have to say, don't you guys think it's tilting if somebody's like too nice, especially like the start of the game? They're like all bubbly and chatting, like, "Ah, good luck, have fun."
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah, you don't want to
take
be
it a little
that
seriously,
nice.
Yeah, dude, that's tilting. Please don't do that if I'm in your game.
But be supportive to your team.
So, yeah, there we have it. There's a nice half an hour of quadrant theory for you, hijacking your initial question.
I want to add one more thing to your quadrant theory. We're gonna make it one up, okay?
The
Okay.
quince.
Because I think there's
quince
one aspect missing, and I think you take all of that together, and it needs like one more element to make you a great player, and I think that element is consistency. I think all of those, consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of those rules apply, but when we've talked about this before on the show, you're going to lose a certain amount of your games no matter what. Right?
Absolutely.
And so that basically means that it's really important that you're playing your absolute best every single match, because the games that aren't just surefire losses, those are the games that you need to be at your top level to be, to know if you're going to be able to impact, or to hopefully impact those games positively.
The games that could go either way.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you don't know what games are what until you get into them. Sometimes you have a champ select that looks like there's no way you could lose, and somebody face checks level 1 and gives up first blood, and that's followed up by 2 or 3 more deaths bot lane, and before you know it, there's like a Cogma that's too fed or something. Anything can happen. So, consistency is just really important. Like if there are gaps in your macro knowledge, you might be really good on this character and most of these matchups, but then somebody throws you a curveball, maybe somebody you don't play against very often, and now you die early, and and you've kind of lost a game maybe that normally you wouldn't, just because of like maybe a gap in your knowledge here, or maybe you branched out onto a new character that you haven't practiced the micro correctly enough, and you lose a game because of maybe being sloppy or hesitant, or or maybe your attitude isn't consistently good, and you lose games once in a while for having a poor attitude. where you tilt your teammates and drag people down. Like, being consistent in all these categories is crucial to being able to climb, because every game counts.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's a really good point, Todd. So
This
quintic
might-
theory, it is.
Yeah, what is the term for that now? If it's 5 points?
It's quintic.
Quintic? Oh, okay.
Yep, I believe
Excellent.
that's how it's pronounced.
This
That's the 5th degree of polynomial. So I'd hope it's quintic.
That should be the name of the episode, I think.
The
quintic-
quintic formula.
The quintic
Excellent.
formula.
I wanted to bring up a point that it's kind of a little bit off topic, but it's branching off of what you said about the games that could go either way. The games that you can win or lose. A trend I've seen in solo queue is people like to give up very early on in the game. A lot of surrenders at 20, and I don't think very many games are actually lost that early. I think people overreact to those. I think there are a lot of games that are winnable if the people just keep playing them out. I mean, if you give up and the surrendered vote doesn't pass, but you give up anyways, you start just going through the motions. Then I mean, you're gonna lose for certain. The loss is 100%. But so long as the game is going, you should still keep playing, because at the very least, even if you lose eventually, at the very least you can learn something, right? And you can use that to get better the next game. But I mean, there are so many games that I've played where it's looked hopeless, and my team has wanted to surrender, and then somehow we pull a victory out of our ass. And at the end of the game, I'm just sitting there staring at the screen like, how the hell did we do that? I mean, you'll see a lot of posts on Reddit or Twitter about we were down by 15k gold, we came back, never surrender. And you know what? I believe in that. I'm all for the never surrender train, unless I'm playing with 5 people as a group and everyone except me, thinks that the game is over, and then I will reluctantly hit the surrender button. But other than that, I never want to surrender, because I think most games can be turned around.
Yeah, especially if
that's true.
you have self-confidence.
Especially these days, like, the game has had so many changes, like so many comeback mechanics that didn't exist before. Especially that give power to your whole team. Like, the thing about coming back in this game is that one player can only do so much. Like, even before, like, one player could still only do so much. Like, if you had a team fight, like, yeah, that one player could carry you. But what if they died early in that one fight? Well, the rest of the team's not going to be able to carry that weight. So, like, you know what I mean? There's always been restrictions on how much one person can do. But, now they've really crunched it down to a team game. So, like, it's enemy mid laner is, like, super fed. Like, whatever, dude. Wait for team fights. There's probably a chance you can turn it around. And when they die, that shut down gold or whatever, I don't know, like, comeback mechanics are crazy.
That's a good point. There are, like, certain things you could look for to see if a game is salvageable, and one of them is if all the gold is on one person on the enemy team. If only one person is super fed, then that's the only person you need to shut down, right? Or if they're not there, if they're still pushing a lane and you got the rest of the enemy team somewhere else, hey, you can 5v4 and win that fight. Another thing you could look out for is, can they push? Like, what is the enemy team doing? Are they just picking you off over and over again, but they're not? What did I say? Over and over again. But are they pushing?
Over and over and over again.
Are they taking towers, or are they just getting kills and then backing off? Right? Are they pushing into your base? Can they push? Do you have a lot of wave clear? Like, if so, then you can stall for a really long time.
Yeah, certain characters are notorious for being able to stall games, right?
Azir.
Like Anivia.
Anivia.
I was going to say Anivia too.
Heimerdinger. TF even has great wave clear.
Yeah.
I mean, Vladimir is good at that now. He's pretty popular.
As we were saying before, like, if you're, especially the lower you play, like, really anywhere, people make mistakes all over the place. It doesn't matter if someone's starts up the game 4-0 and if their jungler's just popping off, killing your jungler in his own jungle. Maybe you guys can outscale them. They're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Just make sure you can punish their mistakes when they get there. Try to make as few as possible. And some games are unsalvageable. I'm not going to lie. It happens. That's just the nature of 5v5s. But, many of them you're going to have your chances to come back in. And the more of those you stick out, the more of them, you're going to be able to turn around.
Have you ever knocked down both of the Nexus turrets and like gotten the Nexus to like below half, and for some reason your team just didn't finish the game and then you
Yes.
lost for it?
Yeah.
Oh my
Like-
god, yes.
Like
Why?
games are, you can always come back. Like there's almost always a chance that the enemy team will just throw it. Like it didn't even have to be your team playing better. Sometimes the enemy team just gives up the win. I don't think you should surrender unless your team literally has like 0 kills, or maybe like 1 or 2, and the enemy team's got like 20 and all the turrets or something already. Like unless the gold lead is so massive and your team like doesn't scale on top of that, then there's just like no point. Like there's always a chance. Games are so long. Get let it run 5 more minutes, and on the off chance you somehow win, you'll be super happy you stayed instead of definitely disappointed that you
Especially
wasted.
Since we're talking about like mechanics, like some people may not have the greatest laning phases, i.e. myself. I'm gonna say I'm a terrible laning AD carry. I'm a pretty terrible mid laner. Outside of basically Trinity, I don't think I can lane against anyone. But as soon as I have items, I can use my game knowledge to leverage the game in my advantage. So I'm actually a pretty decent AD carry once I get 3 items, because I know how to position, I know my damage output a little bit more. Stuff like that. So I'm never going to be given that chance if I'm not allowed to escape laning phase. And there are tons of people out there.
The opposite matters too for the enemy team. Like if I was thinking about this when we were talking about game knowledge, right? There is something that I think of as Riven syndrome, where you'll play against a Riven that's really mechanically sound in lane, and she's really good, and maybe she'll snowball off of you. But then after the laning phase ends, the Riven player doesn't know what to do anymore, because they're just so focused on the micro of the laning phase that they don't have the game knowledge to know what to do with that lead. So they either just stay in lane, or they try to go for bad engages in team fights, and they throw leads because of it.
Perfect. That's absolutely hitting the nail on the head.
That's my
syndrome.
strategy for dealing with Riven. Just feed Riven early, and then just farm for the late game. That's my strategy. It works every time.
I very rarely see Rivens in rank that aren't mechanically strong. Like
usually
very
people that
good,
pick are
very good mechanically.
Yeah, usually
even
pick
in
her for a
gold.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So these guys like always get laning phase leads, but then they can't transition it properly. So yeah, that's Riven syndrome, man. Perfect, and you can apply that to Yasuo and stuff too.
No,
Sure.
dude, Yasuo syndrome is different. Yasuo syndrome is like, I went 0-3, and then I got 2 kills and a double kill, and then I died 6 more times.
Well, only if the Yasuo's in your team.
Yeah, if he's on the other team, he like never died. 17-0 and 9.
He went 3-0, and just kept going.
Yep, and he's got 5 crit items, even
But
though
yes.
he already has 100% crit.
Pretty sure Yasuo has one of the best passives in the game. It's absurd how powerful that passive is.
Honestly, it's okay. I don't think it's that crazy.
The
When
double crit.
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy. He's punished for it. His crits
because he's
on 100% damage.
Because
so
he's punished for it because he's melee too.
Yeah, and he's got
Sure.
horrible base stats.
It has its downside, but it scales incredibly well.
I don't think he like doesn't deal damage. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying
Yeah.
he's got a lot of drawbacks, and I don't think it's like all it's cracked up to be.
Who do you guys think has the best passive in the game? Quick hits.
Old Poppy. When she was unkillable at low health.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
What was it? It like increased her armor magic resist by some percentage that scaled upwards. That was the most baiting passive you could ever play against. Like, oh, Poppy's low health. I'm going in for the tower dive, and then you lose.
Camille's got one of the best passives for top lane, especially.
Yeah, that's very good.
I would have to say Evelyn, because she goes invisible. She's kind of OP. Katarina's
Invisibility.
pretty good.
I mean,
Katarina's
she
good
doesn't
too.
have a. I mean, she doesn't have a passive in combat though. So
Obviously, those champions are for sure. But those like her and Kat and stuff like that, they're balanced around their passive, so it's a little bit unfair to say who's got the best passives kicking around.
Yeah. There's certainly a level of power attributed to the passive. Like if somebody's got a very powerful passive, they'll take away power from the rest of their kit. It works the same for people with really strong ultimates, or
Yeah,
they try to balance out the power level across the entire kit.
yeah, for sure. Totally agree.
Well, before we end off here, do you guys have any last-minute things you want to say about maybe what it takes to be a good player that we didn't cover? Or anything else you want to add in general?
For
I got no
for
idea.
me, I think it's just like you just sort of take our quantic theory as like a baseline. It's problem maybe not necessarily entirely true, but we certainly hit on some of the large themes of League and really focus on like what you think you can improve on. So if you don't think you're the best mechanical champion or player, like maybe you don't have the fastest mouse movements or clicking of the buttons, your reaction time isn't as strong, then try to focus on the other parts of the game that you can improve. So your awareness, making sure you're looking to the map, using that knowledge, making sure you're keeping up with your game knowledge, keeping it fresh, learning those matchups, and then maybe picking a champion that's a little bit simpler on the mechanics side, or vice versa. If you're not as good, or you don't have as much time to take in all the game knowledge, then maybe one trick a champion or really focus on one, maybe two champs, so you can max out the mechanics, and then gather as much game knowledge about that specific champion that you can. That's what I would say. Really focus your learning.
And don't be tricked into thinking you have to be a Zed main mechanical god to be good at this game. There are many avenues to improving, many ways to impact the game.
I thought
Also
that was the secret to getting out of gold.
Think
All my
people that
Z
think
hours
they're-
are wasted.
There are people that think they're better than you because they're better. They have better mechanics. At the end of the day, that's not true. If you win the game, you're the better player. Not every game, but you know what I mean. Like over the course of a season, the person who climbs higher will deserve to climb higher.
You're about to tell me so hard by saying
by a combination of things.
Dude, Punch knows the top. Dude, this is only a top laner thing, okay? You lane your ass off, you go 3-0, and you push and dominating. Team lose a game 4v4, top lane, no impact. Enemy top laner is like 0-7, and they're like, GG, easy, all me. And you're like, dude, I'm quitting.
Yeah, that wasn't quite the point I was trying to make, but hopefully you understand. I'm trying to be wholesome over here, and you guys are just turning it on me with the poor top laners cry. We give you Conqueror, guys. Come on.
We are
Poor
just in a dark
top
place. This is
Dude.
my therapy.
Riot hates us.
I'm pretty sure I've been loving playing Trinity recently. Yeah,
Just wait.
It feels really good, to be honest.
He's been good for one patch. Time to get nerfed.
Yep, Garen got a nip buff, and now everybody thinks he's
Dude,
too
but
strong.
Trinity was terrible for so long, man. And then finally he gets good, and they're like, nope, nerf him. We can't have that. Nerf it.
That's how it works.
You know? That's how it works,
No,
man.
good.
Top laners can't have nice things.
Nope. So they're gonna. Did you notice in the new matchmaking system, they only have 4 roles that you can queue for, and none of them are called top? Like they're actually trying to remove us from the game.
I haven't seen that. Where
Yeah,
did
there's
you
like
see that?
4 roles now. It's like mid lane. No. It's what is it? It's
Solo lane.
solo lane and then off lane, and then support is actually still one, right?
Support's very unique, though.
And then they have one for jungle. So there's not like anything like called top, and there's only 4 selections. I don't know. It's really weird. It's kind of confusing. I think it's
There is a big difference between mid and top. I don't know if solo lane is the right way to go there.
they have solo lane,
they
off
have-
lane, and like 2
Surely
others.
they have the most similarities between all the roles, though. Mid and top. What do you think top is closer to? If
Top
not
and
mid.
jungle share a lot of champions, but yeah, mechanically and even in a macro sense, they're very different roles.
All right, guys. Well, that's episode 1 of the Sork Tri-Gauge podcast. Episode 534. If you're still watching the Trinity Force podcast for some reason,
Not for
Yeah.
long. We're gonna take over.
thanks for being a part of it, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Take care.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to our product and being a member of the Trinity Force Network community. If you have a moment, please head over to iTunes and give your favorite show a comment and a rating. If you're so inclined, you can check out all of the other great shows in the network. We've got a wide variety of content from League of Legends to general gaming and role-playing podcasts. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we can be found on Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit under T-Force Network. We've also got a Patreon under that name where you can support your favorite shows with a small donation each month. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you continue to enjoy all of our podcasts, videos, and the community that we provided.